Hello, dear students. Welcome to our series on World Regional Geography. Today we deal with river systems that drain the Asiatic terrain in this third episode. Today let us try to understand how the continent has shaped the flow of rivers and how the rivers and riparian ecosystems in turn have rendered terrain pattern fruitful and productive. Today we will learn about Introduction to Riparian Ecosystems, Asia's major rivers, their courses and fertile plains, their drainage basins and tributaries, the rivers' deltas, estuaries and ecosystems, and the faunal diversity in the rivers. So let's start with Introduction to Riparian Ecosystems. Rivers are water bodies that flow from a higher point to a lower point, invariably towards seas or oceans, and carry currents full of mineral deposits. Rivers run off by channelizing groundwater aquifers downstream. Most rivers that drain through the earth's ridges towards the sea or the ocean carry fertile alluvial soils and other mineral deposits towards the estuaries or delta ecosystems. A river is a natural watercourse, usually fresh water, flowing toward an ocean, a lake, a sea, or another river. In a few cases, a river simply flows into the ground or dries up completely before reaching another body of water. An example of such a river that does not drain into the sea or the ocean is the Okavango in Africa. Small rivers may also be called by several other names, including stream, creek, brook, rivulet, rill, and tributary. There is no general rule that defines what can be called a river. An exception to this is the stream. In some countries or communities, a stream may be defined by its size. Many names for small rivers are specific to geographic location. One example is Burn in Scotland and northeast England. Sometimes a river is said to be larger than a creek, but this is not always the case because of vagueness in the language. A drainage basin or a riparian ecosystem is an extent or area of land where water from rain and melting snow or ice drains downhill into a body of water such as a river, a lake, reservoir, estuary, wetland, sea, or ocean. The drainage basin includes both the streams and rivers that convey the water and the land surfaces from which water drains into those channels. It is separated from the adjacent basins by a drainage divide. Thus, it makes sense that most of Asia's rivers are born in the mountainous plateaus of either Central Asia or through the mountainscapes of West Asia. The Indus and her tributaries, the Ganga and most of her tributaries, the Yangtze and her tributaries, the Mekong and her tributaries, the Sikyang and her tributaries, all take birth in the mountain passes covered by verdant forests in the Central Asian highlands. And from the Central Asian highlands, all these river systems flow through the ridges on the terrain towards the sea in the different coasts of South Asia. The ecological role of rivers. The drainage basin includes both the streams and rivers that convey the water as well as the land surfaces from which water drains into those channels. Thus, the drainage basin actually comprises of a labyrinth of groundwater aquifers that feed into a larger channel, forming a larger flowing water body, the river. While the groundwater aquifers flow through densely forested areas, the forests in turn enrich the moisture content in the soil strata, thus recharging the aquifers. The soil and sediment discharged by the rivers into the ocean or the sea help maintain coastal humidity and sea temperatures, so crucial to sustain marine fauna and marine ecosystems. The marine ecosystem in turn channelizes ocean currents and evaporation that fosters rain-bearing clouds. The water in a river is usually confined to a channel or a ground ridge made up of a stream bed between banks. In larger rivers, there is also a wider floodplain shaped by floodwaters overtopping the channel. Floodplains may be very wide in relation to the size of the river channel. This distinction between river channel and floodplain can be blurred, especially in urban areas where the floodplain of a river channel can become greatly developed by housing and industry. The river channel typically contains a single stream of water, but some rivers flow as several interconnecting streams of water, producing a braided river. Extensive braided rivers are now found in only a few regions worldwide, such as the South Island of New Zealand and the Mekong Delta in Southeast Asia. They have multiple sinuous channels carrying large volumes of sediment. In depositing soil and sediment to the ocean floor where the rivers meet the sea or the ocean, new land is created. Latest ocean research suggests that seas without rivers flowing into them are less salty and support more coral reefs and marine forests. Example is the west coast of the Andaman Islands. The salts deposited by rivers in the seas help in maintaining coastal humidity and ambient temperatures. There are no rivers in the Andaman group of islands. Thus, the seas off the west coast of the Andaman Islands is less salty and richer in marine fauna, including coral reefs, dolphins, dugongs and whales, whale sharks, seabirds, flying fish, squids, giant clams, shells, mussels, oysters, nautilus, sea cucumbers, sea horses, etc. Rivers that flow from upcountry or higher plateaus towards sea level discharge a lot of salts, soil, sediment, etc., which deposit these kinds of sediment and soil on the river banks. Further, rivers often change course, rendering abandoned floodplains infinitely fertile. Rivers fed by snow melt are perennial rivers, while rain-fed rivers change their volume depending on the volume of water collected at the source or catchment area. The rivers have created vast fertile plains which are the breadbaskets in Asia. Punjab is the Doab region between the tributaries of the Indus. The Indo-Gangetic plain spreads from the southern banks of Yamuna to the delta of the Ganges in the east and to the delta of the Indus on the west. Asia's major rivers, their courses and their fertile plains. Hundreds of rivers flow through the ridges in Asia, but the main rivers are the Yangtze, the Hongho or the Yellow River, Sikiang, Mekong, Ganges and its tributaries, Indus and her tributaries, Tigris and Euphrates. India has many rivers flowing in her veins. These are the Brahmaputra, Indus River, Ganges and her tributaries, Mahanadi, Narmada, Tapti, Godavari, Krishna, Tungabhadra and the Kaveri. Hereunder is the list of 32 other important rivers in Asia. The major rivers in Asia are the Yangtze, 6,300 kilometers, the Yellow River, also called the Honghe or the Hongho, 5,464 kilometers, Mekong River, 4,909 kilometers, Indus River, 2,900 kilometers, Brahmaputra River, also 2,900 kilometers, the Amur River, 2,824 kilometers, the Euphrates River, 2,800 kilometers, the Ganga, 2,510 kilometers. Each of these river systems discharge massive amounts of water and silt, protect vast catchment areas which are inundated with groundwater aquifers in dense forest area. Thus, they help recycle the moisture-laden clouds from the atmosphere to groundwater and then to the oceans. The groundwater aquifers that flow into the rivers render the river banks eminently arable and lend enormous fertility for agricultural cultivation. Thus, fertile plains have developed in many areas across Asia. These are the Indo-Gangetic fertile plains across India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, the Red Basin, Taklamakan, Nanling, Xinjiang, Manchuria and the Wulan-Shan river basins in China, the Golodnaya steppe and the Pripyat marshes in Ukraine, the Zapadno-Sibirskaya Nizmennost, Sredne-Sibirskaya Plosko-Gorye Pesky Kizilkum and Pesky Karakum in Russia, the Dasht-Elut in Iran and the Tigris-Euphrates basin in Iraq. The vast swathes of arable lands thus lend scope for enormous amounts of agriculture and cultivation, empowering Asian economies with agricultural self-sufficiency and also trade in agricultural products and services. While wheat and rice are ideal for cultivation on the vast fertile plains fed by the rivers that deposit alluvial soil, cotton, jute, spices, vegetables, fruits and flowers, commercial crops are all grown favorably on Asian river banks. Their drainage basins and tributaries, the Yangtze river system and her tributaries. The river Yangtze in China takes its birth in the Tibetan mountains and flows some 6,300 kilometers before entering the East China Sea near Shanghai. The Yangtze River is virtually the dividing line between North and South China. Being one of the largest rivers in the world, it has a fertile river basin area comprising 180,000 square kilometers, which is the drainage basin for the river. The river discharges a massive 31,900 cubic meters of water per second. The river originates in a glacier lying on the west of Gela Dandong mountain in the Dangla mountain range on the eastern part of the Tibetan plateau. It runs eastward through Qinghai, turning southward down a deep valley at the border of Sichuan and Tibet to reach Yunnan. In the course of this valley, the river's elevation drops from above 5,000 meters to less than 1,000 meters. The headwaters of the Yangtze are situated at an elevation of about 4,900 meters. In its descent to sea level, the river falls to an altitude of 305 meters at Yibin, Sichuan province, and again at an altitude of 40 meters. At a further distance of about 320 kilometers, it passes through the spectacular Yangtze gorges, which are noted for their natural beauty but are dangerous to shipping. The Three Gorges Dam is built across this massive river and accounts for the reservoir capacity of 39.3 cubic kilometers, a catchment area of 100,000 square kilometers, a surface area of 1,045 square kilometers, and an installed capacity of 22,500 megawatts. The dam impounds the Yangtze River across a length of 2,335 meters, a height of 185 meters, with a reservoir base width of 115 meters. It has a base crest of 40 meters at its depth. The dam body was completed in 2006. Except for a ship lift or the shipping locks, all of the originally planned components of the project were completed on the 30th of October 2008 when the 26th generator was brought into commercial operation. The Yangtze is home to at least two critically endangered species, the Chinese alligator and the Chinese paddlefish. This is the only other place besides the United States that is native to an alligator species. In December 2006, the baiji, or the Chinese river dolphin, was declared functionally extinct after an extensive search of the river revealed no signs of the dolphin's inhabitants. However, one was sighted soon after. The finless porpoise is also found in the river. The Mekong River, legend has it, is inhabited by the legendary Chinese dragon, but it has not been sighted and scientifically documented ever. If it is true, then the Chinese dragon is bigger than the anaconda. The Ganges River system and her tributaries. The Ganges is one of the major rivers of the Indian subcontinent, flowing east through the Gangetic plain of northern India into Bangladesh. The 2,510-kilometer river takes its birth in a cave referred to as Gomukh by devout Hindus at the bottom of a glacier in the western Himalayas in the Uttarakhand state of India. The Ganga drains into the Sundarbans Delta in the Bay of Bengal. The Bhagirathi is the source stream. It rises at the foot of the Gangotri glacier at Gomukh at an elevation of 3,892 meters. It has long been considered a holy river by the Hindus and worshipped as the goddess Ganga in Hinduism. It has also been important historically. Many former provincial or imperial capitals such as Pataliputra, Kannauj, Kara, Allahabad, Murshidabad and Calcutta have been located on its banks. Varanasi is the holiest of Hindu pilgrim centers where the devout Hindus must visit at least once in their lifespans and take a dip in the holy Ganges. It remains a death wish to all North Indian Hindus to be consecrated into the elements on the banks of the Ganges. The river has many tributaries that flow through the plains of North India, blessing the land with infinite deposits of fertile alluvial soil, making it perfect for cultivation. The fertile plain, watered by groundwater aquifers, spread right across the floodplains of the major tributaries of the Ganges, renders these plain lands ideally suitable for cultivation. The fertile plain of North India is the subcontinent's breadbasket. The vast deposits of alluvial soils, buffeted about by changing river courses, groundwater aquifers and deposits of alluvial soil, has rendered the Indo-Gangetic fertile plains very prosperous. The extent of soil fertility led to negative demographic consequences. With population explosion, human development indices rocketed, putting enormous strain on planning and management of resources. The Gangetic Basin drains 907,000 square kilometers at the mouth over a 100,000 square kilometers area and supports one of the world's highest densities of humans. The Ganges, above all, is the river of India, which has held India's heart captive and drawn uncounted millions to her banks since the dawn of history. The story of the Ganges, from her source to the sea, from old times to the new, is the story of India's civilization and culture, of the rise and fall of empires, of great and proud cities, of adventures of man. Joined by numerous rivers such as the Kosi, Son, Gandaki and Ghagra, the Ganges forms a formidable current in the stretch between Allahabad and Malda in West Bengal. On its way, it passes the towns of Kanpur, Soron, Kannauj, Allahabad, Varanasi, Patna, Ghazipur, Bhagalpur, Mirzapur, Balia, Buxa, Saidapur and Chunar. At Bhagalpur, the river meanders past the Rajmahal hills and begins to run south. At Pakur, the river begins its attrition with the branching away of its first tributary, the Bhagirathi Hooghly, which goes on to form the Hooghly River. Near the border with Bangladesh, the Farakka barrage, built in 1974, controls the flow of the Ganges, diverting some of the water into a feeder canal linking the Hooghly to keep it relatively silt-free. After entering Bangladesh, the main branch of the Ganges is known as the Padma River until it is joined by the Jamuna River, the largest tributary of the Ganga. Further downstream, the Ganges is fed by the Meghna River, the second largest tributary of the Brahmaputra. She takes on the Meghna's name as it enters the Meghna estuary. Fanning out into a 350-kilometer wide Ganges delta, it finally empties into the Bay of Bengal. Only two rivers, the Amazon and the Congo, have greater discharge than the combined flow of the Ganges, the Brahmaputra and the Surma Meghna rivers. Difference between estuary and delta. While estuaries are rivers flowing into the sea in a single channel, deltas are many rivulets branching off from the main watercourse of the river to spread the drainage while draining out. Faunal diversity in Indian rivers. On the banks of the Ganga and her tributaries, one finds all samples of floral and faunal diversity. Ecosystems that thrive on the banks of the Ganges and her tributaries include pine forests and dense wet evergreen rainforests on the foothills of the Himalayas, moist deciduous forests all along her trail in the North Indian plains, grassland ecosystems in the Terai Arc, sand dunes on the borders of the Thar Desert, deciduous forests, dry deciduous forests, shrub forests, and finally mangrove and littoral forests. Recent studies revealed that the Bangladesh Sundarbans support diverse biological resources, including at least 120 species of commercially important fishes, 270 species of birds, 42 species of mammals, 35 reptiles, and 8 amphibian species. There are 5,070 species of marine and non-marine mollusks living in the wild in India. By virtue of being the river with the maximum tributaries, the Ganga scores on account of the largest delta. Thanks to this large delta, the largest mangrove ecosystem on planet Earth thrives, while effectively sinking the country of Bangladesh. The sheer weight of the silt brought down by the myriad tributaries of the mighty Ganga sinks the land. Coupled with sea level rise, the innumerable villages on the delta are being enveloped rapidly by the swelling waters of the Ganga and the Bay of Bengal. Nevertheless, the mangrove ecosystem and the littoral forests have played a very crucial role in protecting the lowlands of Bangladesh from sea surge, the Asian tsunami, cyclone Nargis, and the super cyclone of 1999. Mangroves are the most effective bioshields in protecting land and its denizens from hydrometeorological disasters like sea surge, sea storm, cyclones, and typhoons. In this episode today, we have learned about the different rivers, their drainage pattern, and the sediment they deposit, how the rivers have influenced agricultural ecosystems and faunal diversity. Thus, we see how important rivers and riparian ecosystems are to a given region. In the next episode, we shall learn about natural vegetation and ecosystems in Asia. Do join us without fail then. Thank you for tuning in today. I shall sign off now, wishing you all good luck with your assignments.